The Chief of Defence Staff, General Rawat, General Bipin Rawat, has said the controversy about the Chinese coming into Indian territory and building a new village is not true, and that the villages were well within the Chinese side of the line of actual control. Earlier, in an official reaction to the US report, the External Affairs Ministry said India has neither accepted China's illegal occupation of its territory nor any unjustified Chinese claims, so contradictory statements. Remember, just to make this easier for our viewers, there is the international boundary that India believes exists between India and China in Arunachal Pradesh, and then there is the line of actual control, which is a separate line that is, in a way, the actual situation on the ground where Indian soldiers exist. However, the territory between that line of actual control and territory to the north, which may be in Chinese occupation, is still Indian territory as far as we are concerned. Why? We dispute or disagree with the existence of the Chinese in those areas. So there is the international boundary on top, a line of actual control in between, the territory in between, we believe historically is Indian territory. We have not ceded an inch of that. The question this evening: has China consolidated its hold on Indian territory in Arunachal Pradesh? We've got a great panel. General Sanjay Meston with us, Brahma Chelani also with us, Supriya Srinate, spokesperson of the Congress, PKD Nambiar, who supports the BJP, and Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni with us. First up in this program, it's called the First Punch. It's 1 minute and then we get into the debate. General Meston, I'll start with you. Your first minute on this debate starts now, sir. Your first comments, go ahead.
Vishnu, good evening. My comment is as follows, that I am very clear, having been extensively along the China border, served there, there is no such kind of intrusion, and different perception exists regarding interpretation of LAC / so-called international border, but there is no intrusion whatsoever. And this is what I, as a military man, I am very firm in whatever I state, and I will support it with logic and facts. Thank you.
Right. Brahma Chelani, your first minute. Go ahead, sir. Your first comment.
I prefer to look at the larger picture. India has incrementally been losing border areas to Chinese expansionism since the 1950s, including the Lunse area, where a 100-home village has been built, the village that we're talking about, and where China has found gold during minerals exploration. China is constantly probing Indian defenses, and where it finds empty, unpatrolled border spaces, it intrudes and occupies those spaces. In this manner, it has over the years been expanding its control, often mile by mile. What stands out in the last decade or so is the speed and stealth with which China is redrawing facts on the ground, with little regard for the geopolitical fallout.
Okay. General Sanjay Kulkarni, sir, you're up next. Your 1 minute starts now, sir. Go ahead.
Vishnu, first and foremost, by the instrument of accession, the whole of it is ours. But definitely, since 1950, the Chinese have occupied and they have reached where they are today by 1959. Where the construction has taken place are areas which are in their occupation since 1959. In fact, Longju is the place from where everything starts. The war of 1962 commences from that being the catalyst to what has happened. The construction that is being seen is in the area which they have occupied, which is unjustified occupation, that could be said. But yes, the area is under their occupation since 1959. From the post that we have right opposite that, nothing is visible. Yes, the satellite imageries do show construction of about 100 houses and things that have come up, maybe for dual purpose use for men as also for the Tibetans over there, and that is in the area between Longju and Megaton. Yeah.
Got it, sir. PKD Nambiar, 1 minute. Your time starts now. Go ahead. Mr. Nambiar, I think you're on mute. So, okay, you've started. The audio is back. I'll give you more time. Go ahead and start now.
I believe that more than 3,000 kilometers of overall boundary which we share with the China, since there is no absolute boundary, demarcated boundary, there are bound to have little bit of problems here and there. But I am confident that we have a very strong government, strong elected government who is ready to give a reply at any point of time. I believe we have the best army available in the world, or the best defense forces available in the world or in the universe today to take on to any enemy who can come. So I think we are very well prepared than ever. We are not an India of 1962. We do not have a weak leader to governing this country. I think I am more than ever confident as an Indian. Let any China or any country like that may try. And secondly, and most importantly, you know that China has got an expansionist policy, but that will not work with India. We have clearly, our Jawans have proved that in the Wuhan Valley. I think let's believe that our government, our defense forces,
got it, sir.
Are the strongest they will be able to do.
Okay. Supriya, 1 minute starts now.
Thank you very much, and what an eminent panel this is. It's an honor to be a part of this. I will only simply say that this masculine image of the government, this muscular, strong image of the Prime Minister is perhaps what is proving to be our biggest hurdle as we deal with China. The MEA and the Chief of Defense Staff are on two different pages as far as this Chinese occupation and the building of the 100 to 101 houses village is concerned. The Pentagon 192-page report is a huge cause of concern, not a word from the government as far as that is concerned. And China, not just doing things on the Ladakh border, but look at the Siliguri chicken neck, or for that matter, intruding the Uttarakhand boundaries and destroying a bridge there. So China needs to be taught a lesson, but the lesson has to be taught in a far more diplomatic, in a far wider way than just flexing muscles for the domestic audience. This requires our MEA and our defense ministries to come together. Right now, they're speaking in two different languages. They seem to be on two different pages. We cannot be falling prey to cheap domestic applause while dealing with China. That's what we are doing right now.
All right. My first question to you, General Meston, you said that there is no intrusion, but would you agree that there is an intrusion into territory which India says is ours and but does not occupy in this Longju sector?
Let me make certain perspectives very clear. Firstly, I think a point was made by Mr. Brahmachalini that their patrols keep coming more often. Now, I will put certain facts very, very clear for the Indian public. Number one, all along the line of actual control, Indian Army is deployed.
No, sir, I'm not asking about the line of actual control. I'm asking you whether Chinese construction has taken place south of the international boundary, also known as the McMahon Line, in territory which India considers as ours and is illegally occupied by China. Yes or no,
okay,
sir?
So I would put it across as General Kulkarni has brought out, and even yesterday the CDS had highlighted that in 1959 this area was under them and this was the source of conflict. So considering that was the existing position, and whatever they have improved the defenses, the construction of the village, in that parlance, I would not term this as an intrusion. That cannot be termed as an intrusion because this has been existing in 1959. So nothing new has happened except that, yes, they have upgraded that village, constructed about 100 odd houses over there.
Okay, let me put that to Brahma Chelani. Dr. Chelani, we cannot consider it an intrusion because this is an area that's been under Chinese occupation for a long period of time. Is the word intrusion accurate?
It's accurate because China has been intruding across the McMahon Line, not just under the present government in New Delhi, but even under the previous governments, including the Manmohan Singh government and Atal Bihari Vajpayee government. In January this year, as you recall, China justified its construction of a village beyond the McMahon Line. This is the village that you had highlighted in one of your reports. It justified its construction by saying it never recognized Arunachal Pradesh.
Right.
In other words, because it lays claim to Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet, it can keep on encroaching. This is more reason why India must change its stance. Indian policy over the decades has aided China's territorial aggrandizement, including its strategy of rolling annexation.
Right.
For example, while China lays claim to Arunachal Pradesh as South Tibet on the basis of its alleged historical links to Tibet, India maintains that Tibet is an integral part of the PRC.
Right.
Can a national stance be more self-injurious than this? It's past time for India to revise the stance.
Right. General
You know,
Kulkarni, let me
the
ask
one
you
China
this.
policy of India
Yeah.
has to be conditioned.
Got it.
on a One India policy.
Got it, Dr.
of
Chilani.
Beijing.
Got it. Get the point. This is a big fight. I'm trying to be a little bit more vociferous. Let me go across to you, General Kulkarni. And the point I need to ask you is this: Are we giving the Chinese a free pass by referring to the line of actual control, when in fact the construction activity that we are talking about is in an area that India has never ceded? Why talk about the line of actual control over here when in fact we are talking about the territory between the line of actual control and the international boundary? Are we not deflecting from the situation at hand? General Kulkarni, sir.
Vishnu, when it comes to China, the international boundary is what it was, as I said, by the instrument of accession. When it comes to East, it is the McMahon line.
Right.
That is the McMahon line. They don't seem to recognize it. And whatever talks has transpired then, that, yeah, we would rather, quid pro quo, McMahon line accepted now, give us something in Eastern Ladakh. All those talks are all history now. The fact is, even as regards McMahon line is concerned, Sundarang Chu, they've also crossed Tagla Ridge. They're already down below. They're right under our nose.
Right.
Even in Longju, this is a place which was.
But does that mean we give up our claim on those areas?
Vishnu, this is a pilgrimage route which would be undertaking every 12 years by the locals over there. And since 1956, we have not been undergoing this pilgrimage route because they were and they are in illegal occupation of the area which is supposedly ours. Yes, no doubt. And they are in occupation since 1959. And this village, the fight that took place, the soldier that we lost over there in 1959, for which Pandit Nehru had to say so in the parliament that yes, after 3 days this incident has occurred and something has gone wrong between India and China. That is a fact which is gone. Since 59, the area is under their occupation. The construction of these villages have taken place in illegally occupied territory by China. Longju, American.
Right. So that really is the point. General Mester, you're disagreeing. Go ahead. So why are you disagreeing?
Yeah, I see. I was in the military operations directorate, looking after China as a brigadier. Firstly, let's be very clear. The line of the international border, what General Kulkarni has highlighted, is absolutely correct that it is the McMahon line. But what exactly is McMahon line? Have you seen the maps? The McMahon line during the British era, that time it was marked by a big pen, something like a big marker, and it was on the million-meter map. It is just along certain so-called watersheds. Yes. Therefore, how do we define this on ground? So, over a period of time, there have been different perceptions, and therefore your patrolling, etc., by the Indian Army. So that has now been termed as the LAC. For anyone to define what exactly is the international border, it is impossible to do it on that map. So therefore, that is why this has been termed as LAC. Now, since that time, there have been certain intrusions in 1959. So they are at that particular place. So we cannot term that as intrusion. And I want to state one thing very, very clearly, that the Indian Army is patrolling all along. I'm not only focusing on this area as a concept, as a policy. I'm telling the Chinese rarely come on their patrols. I commanded my brigade in Nathula. I've seen them rarely coming once in a month. We were patrolling entire area, my entire brigade sector. So there was no question of any intrusion in any sector. And even if something happens, let's put it, the local drill is we immediately go and remove whatever construction they do. In fact, I would say at times we have been more aggressive on that front. Let's not forget.
Brahma Chalani, would you respond to that one point that's been mentioned? That's a critical point by General Meston, that the boundary itself, the McMahon line, it's difficult. It was drawn with a thick pen. It's difficult to actually, but that's the root of the problem. That's why we are having this discussion. Does that mean that we need to neglect or ignore the map as per the Survey General of India which exists?
The fact that the McMahon line was drawn with a thick pen, that's a fact. But that does not detract from Chinese expansionism. For example, the confrontation that is happening for the last 19 months because of Chinese encroachments in Ladakh. Overnight, they laid claim to Galwan Valley. They've intruded into areas which were traditionally under Indian patrolling. So, lying or no lying, Chinese expansionism is uncontrollable.
Okay.
And it's been uncontrollable for a long time.
Right.
Now, if you look at Chinese encroachments, people of Ladakh, Uttarakhand, and Arunachal Pradesh have long complained that Chinese troops have been steadily nibbling away at Indian territories, taking over high altitude pasture lands and blocking traditional herding routes. China has pursued a strategy of employing nomads from their side to go in with their livestock with the PLA support so as to mark territory as their own. Now, this building of villages, which is happening more recently, that began, let's be clear, when President Xi Jinping openly called on Tibetan herdsmen in 2017 to settle down in frontier areas and, quote unquote, become guardians of Chinese territory. Now, in 4 years, we have seen how this village building program has taken off, both in Indian territories as well as in Bhutanese territory. Through Bhutanese territory, they have opened a new axis against India's so-called chicken neck.
Yes. Yeah. No, exactly. No, that's dangerous. Supriya, the question which needs to be asked is that I don't want to make this a political fight, but it just as a matter of position. The fact is that successive Congress governments since the 60s have neglected infrastructure building. You can't just build a road in 4 or 5 years. In those areas, you need to be building for decades because the terrain is against us. Is that not the central reason why we are talking today? India has never built up enough infrastructure to protect and defend and get into those areas. Supriya.
No, Vishnu, that is not true. Should more infrastructure have been built? Absolutely, yes. And it's always a work in progress. It's not as if infrastructure got built since 2014 only. There were things that were approved first and then the building started. I want to raise a larger point getting what the political difference is. I honestly feel that the elected government of the day needs to make up its mind on engagement with China. Look at how we've engaged with China. We called them to Sabarmati, we called them to Mahabalipuram, they did a Duklam, now they did it Epsang. We have not been able to revert the April 2020 status quo ante. We gave them a clean sheet. The Prime Minister said, koi ghusa nahi hua hai. What did China do? China tom-tomed that to the world, and China used that to not go back to the status quo ante of April 2020. China is still occupying Hot Spring, Galwan, Depsang, places like that. I also feel China has been able to successfully win over a lot of our very, very all-weather good neighbors, whether it's Bhutan or it's Maldives, Sri Lanka or it's Bangladesh. China is now in conversation with all of them.
Okay, let me get a response from PKD Nambiar on that.
Pakistan, and in turn with Taliban is extremely worrying. And the government of the day has actually sat there and said, China, our biggest trading partner in the last 1 year.
PKD Nambiar, what is our China policy?
I'm not an external affairs expert for that matter, and the defense expert. So I leave that to the generals who are very clearly and categorically in this panel has clearly said that we are in a safe hand and our armies are in fully control of our line of actual control. There I leave that particular part. But so the other part which I wanted to talk about is if at all if there is an issue with the Chinese are becoming an aggressive, why it is happening now? It is only because of the last 60 years of our independence. We have, even despite we losing a war to the Chinese, we have never learned that we need to build up wonderful infrastructure on our border states. We need to have airports wherein we can move our forces at any point of time if required, if there is an emergency. We need to have bridges which can take our forces to the
No, China has realized that you want to play to your domestic galleries. And you're willing to give them a clean sheet.
See, I'll tell you, talk about from your experiences. So I nullify your talk because you talk from your experiences. You never put your country as the first. You always put a family first. I think a Congress spokesperson talking about the country first is making a joke of the day. It's basically for Congress, it's a family first. Ma'am, first you become a president of the party of your own. Then we talk about Chinese. You don't even have a right to talk about this.
All right, okay, I think that's enough. I think that's enough. Both of you, enough personal attacks on both sides. So we'll bring down the sound in all of that.
Let's talk about the China.
I think I need to wrap this program up, and the reason I want to wrap it up is because as India and China, can I just pipe in with one word? As India and China as India has this dispute inside, our MEA says one thing, our Chief of Defence Staff says something else. We've got brilliant experts over here. One outstanding general says there has been no intrusion. One outstanding general says that areas are illegally occupied still. We are still not using the same language. If India does not use the same language, then at the end of the day, it's the Chinese who are laughing at us, at our expense, and that really becomes the problem. I'll wrap this program up at this stage with a comment on coup which has come in. Smriti writes in, she says, China's policy of building up habitation along the line of actual control in Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh is part of a multi-billion-dollar plan. A coup question from Shivangi, why are we even surprised that it is true? That's a question that's coming. Why are we even surprised if it is true? That's a question. Out of time on this program from all of us here.